The big news this week is that we got the Bruce Ohr 302 documents. These are big documents in outlining the deep state conspiracy against President Trump. And I will begin with the Bruce Ohr documents because they're the big news story of the week, if not the month, if not the year. Once again, Judicial Watch comes through with the documents. We filed a lawsuit last year for a series of FBI 302 reports. These are 302 reports are narrative reports created by FBI agents that document witness and subject interviews. And believe it or not, one of the witness interviews they were documenting was Bruce Ohr, who was a senior Justice Department official whose wife worked for Fusion GPS, the Clinton DNC spy operation that employed and hired Christopher Steele to create that phony dossier against President Trump. Glenn Simpson was the principal, I think, owner of Fusion GPS, and they were all working for the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee in a disguised way through a law firm that the campaign and the committee had hired to create this dossier. Now, the problem with the dossier is it wasn't true. It alleged a Russia conspiracy that Trump was involved in that wasn't true. And even worse, the FBI and the Justice Department used this obviously untrue document to justify spying and all sorts of other misconduct against President Trump. So Christopher Steele, who is the principal author allegedly of the Steele dossier, was also an Obama FBI confidential informant. Judicial Watch received the documents showing that he met with his FBI handlers at least 13 times during the 2016 presidential campaign. And he was paid 11 of those times. He finally was cut off and fired from the FBI's confidential informant program immediately before the election because he was leaking Russiagate stories. So what did the FBI do? They were desperate to get Trump. So they used Bruce Ohr, whose wife, again, worked for Fusion GPS and was conflicted as many ways as you can think of, to be the conduit for information from Christopher Steele, Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS, and his wife. So this whole scheme is laid out and described in these 302 documents. We asked for them because we knew Congress knew they were out there and wasn't getting them. So we thought, well, we get them through the Freedom of Information Act. And sure enough, we asked for them. We were denied. We sued, I think, in August of last year, and we finally got them. The Department of Justice had been withholding them in full. And I think someone smart, probably the Attorney General himself, decided these are important documents to get out finally because they document, as I suggest, the coup against President Trump. So what do the documents show? They show a variety of things, and I'll go through them with you. Now, this is what we get when we get these documents. This is the cover letter, and then some pages telling us why we're not getting documents, and then this is what the FBI 302 looks like. You can see they don't black out redactions anymore, so they just white out. So these white lines you see, those are redactions for various reasons. Law enforcement, some of it is classified. The entire documents themselves were classified, and they were declassified thanks to your friendly neighborhood Judicial Watch. And the documents show that the FBI, the Justice Department, and the State Department were colluding with Fusion GPS, the spy ring that was working for Clinton and the DNC. Bruce Ohr at the Justice Department, obviously, he was involved. His wife, Nellie Ohr, also tied to Fusion GPS. They were all working together to target Trump improperly. I mean, the idea that you have a Justice Department official acting as a witness and a go-between with this foreign spy, a senior official Bruce Ohr was. According to the document, he was the Associate Deputy Attorney General and Director of the Department of Justice Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force. Again, Associate Deputy Attorney General. They don't engage in spy games. But when you're after Trump, all the rules are cast aside. And the documents show that the FBI and the Justice Department, under Trump, because they took place, some of this, a lot of these communications took place during the beginning of the Trump administration, and certainly under Obama, knew that Christopher Steele, the author of the Fusion GPS generated dossier, again on behalf of Hillary Clinton, was an anti-Trumper. And specifically, the document says Steele was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him being the U.S. president. Desperate and passionate. The documents also describe a series of leaks that Fusion GPS had authorized about their Russia dossier hoax. They detailed communications that Steele and Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson were having with the State Department. I'm going to go through all of this. They didn't tell the FISA courts most of this. They didn't tell the FISA court, who was using this information, the Steele dossier generated information. They didn't tell the FISA court that Steele was desperate to stop President Trump and didn't want to see him be U.S. president. Most of these communications are taking place, all of them are taking place after the election. I think the FISA courts were told, well, there may be a political bias on the part of the folks creating this intelligence. And it wasn't really intelligence, it was just rumor, probably based from FBI sources. That's another matter. So these detail not only the coup cabal scheme and how they were operating, but would be, I think, an exhibit in any criminal prosecution of those who were misleading the FBI, the FISA courts. So let me go through this with you. On November 22nd, 2016, Bruce Ohr said that reporting on Trump's ties to Russia were going to the Clinton campaign, John Weiner at the U.S. State Department, and the FBI. Why is that important? John Weiner is a top official at the Kerry State Department. What's he doing involved in this? He was friends with Steele. We talked about this in previous updates. He admits he helped author part of the Steele dossier. So he's writing crap up, giving it to Steele, who's funneling it back to the Justice Department and the FBI. Or knew that Fusion GPS's Glenn Simpson and others were talking to Victoria Nuland at the State Department. Who's Victoria Nuland? A senior official at the State Department. I think she was in charge of European affairs and Eurasia affairs for the State Department. So she wasn't some muckety-muck. In the chain of command, she would have been, I would say, one level beneath the Secretary of State. Reported directly to Kerry. Glenn Simpson directed a person who is, they redacted, it's probably Steele, to speak to the press. And it looks like that press was left-leaning Mother Jones. We knew there were Mother Jones stories about the dossier. On December 5th, 2016, again, after the president's been elected, Ohr promised to voluntarily give his wife Nellie Ohr's Fusion GPS research to the FBI. He also provided the FBI, obviously from either his wife or Fusion GPS, a report on Paul Manafort titled Manafort Chronology. So that looks like it's Nellie's work product. So did you know that the Manafort prosecution was based in part on material generated by the Clinton campaign's operation? I didn't know that. On December 12, 2016, Simpson gave Ohr a thumb drive with Fusion GPS research on it. Ohr claims not to know what is on the drive. So he just handed over the thumb drive. During the meeting he had with Simpson, based evidently on a meeting, during the meeting, I Simpson identified Michael Cohen, I'm misreading this, President Trump's former personal lawyer, as having, quote, many Russian clients. I don't think that's true. Simpson also said that Cohen may have attended a meeting in Prague, and that was one of the big lies out there that the left was desperate to prove. It turned out not to be true. Ohr described Simpson directing someone to talk to the Mother Jones reporter as it was a Simpson's Hail Mary attempt. So they were desperate to get this material into the media, and obviously they were desperate to get it into the FBI and Justice Department. December 20th, 2016, Ohr provided the FBI with his wife Nellie Ohr's Fusion GPS research, which contained the totality of her work. But the Fusion GPS header was stripped. Think about that. Ohr is bringing his wife's work and giving it to the FBI, or a senior Justice Department official, and disguising it by stripping its origins and its connections to the Clinton camp. Ohr, by the way, is still working for the Justice Department. January 23rd, 2017. I don't know, when was Inauguration Day? Almost at the time the president became president. President Trump took the oath. Ohr tells the FBI that Steele told him that Steele quote, spoke with a staff member of Senator John McCain's office sometime prior to 2016. So they were leaking it to the anti-Trump Senator John McCain in October 2016. We didn't know about that. We knew that McCain's people were shopping the Steele dossier around. We didn't know they were talking to them as early as then. So that's new. February 2nd, 2017. President is president. President Trump is president at the time. On February 2nd, 2017, the president tells Ohr to see if Steele would be, quote, comfortable getting the name of an FBI agent as a contact. Ohr tells the agents that State Department official Kathleen Kavalak spoke with Steele several times prior to the U.S. presidential election and believes Steele's reporting to have been generated mainly from blank. They blacked it out. Another State Department connection. And the FBI, who had cut off Steele because he was a leaker, during the Trump administration, is trying to bring him back into the fold, despite knowing his bias. And by the way, his dossier wasn't checking out. That's why they were desperate to keep on talking to him, because they knew there was nothing, they weren't finding anything that was checking out. I don't know if you've read the dossier. I suggest you do. If you read it, you will quickly surmise that it's a joke and should never have been taken seriously. And sure enough, in January of 2017, Comey admitted, James Comey, the FBI director, admitted that it was salacious and unverified. And go and look at the Mueller report. Double check this, because I'm going on memory here. But I remember looking up the Steele dossier in the Mueller report. Every time it's mentioned, Mueller mentions it as unverified. It was never verified. They knew it then, they knew it now. February 14, 2017, Ohr tells the FBI that Steele communicated with him via FaceTime, and that Steele was, quote, beginning to worry about his business. Steele discussed brokering new business with the FBI and told Ohr, you may see me reemerge in a couple of weeks. So Ohr's FaceTiming Christopher Steele. May 3rd, 2017, Steele called Ohr to tell him that he'd, quote, been worried about Director Comey's upcoming testimony to Congress, especially his responses to questions that would be raised by Senator Grassley. Although what he was specifically worried about was redacted, Steele was, quote, happy with Director Comey's response. So Steele was afraid. It looks to me like he's going to be ratted out.
May 2017, Ohr was asked by the FBI to ask Steele if he would be willing to have a conversation with FBI agents in the UK. Steele responded he would, but he would have to check. So why is this important? This is just before Mueller is appointed. So they were not only had cut off Mueller, but several months later, just before Mueller's appointed, they are desperate to get to Steele, going so far as to send FBI agents to the UK. Now, why? Jim Jordan made a good point. Jim Jordan, a congressman from Ohio. And Jordan was on TV this week. We were on Hannity together this week. And this is what I love about getting documents out there, guys, because I want you to look at these too. Because we're analyzing this. We got this material. I'll tell you what it's like here at Judicial Watch. They promised us these documents on a Monday, this past Monday. They said they needed 3 more days, which meant up to 3 more days. And we always know the government says when they say they need more time, they're going to take as much time as they say they need. They never give it to you early. So sure enough, they give us the documents at 5:30 on Thursday. So we are desperately, the media is waiting for this. The American people are waiting for this. So we are desperately trying to analyze all of these documents here, which are complex. There's a lot of information in here, and get it out. So we can't necessarily catch everything that's important here. You know, we use, based on our collective knowledge here, my colleagues and I, look at the material and try to highlight what we think is important and put it all out there for the American people to look through themselves. So that's what's the wonderful part of this, because you don't have to rely on my analysis here. You can look at these documents yourself. And Jim Jordan looks at these documents himself, for instance, a member of Congress. And he highlights the fact, why is it they're creating 302s? You don't create 302s just because you're interested in writing things. You're doing it because you're investigating someone. And as he pointed out, they weren't investigating Bruce Ohr. They were investigating the President of the United States based on garbage material that was being presented to them by Bruce Ohr and the Clinton gang at Fusion GPS. No doubt about it. The documents also show, I don't think I covered this, that Steele was communicating with Bruce Ohr on the WhatsApp, which is a computer application that allows you, in theory, to communicate in a more secure way. It allows you to delete material and communications easily. Why in heaven's name is a senior Justice Department official playing spy games with this foreign spy? He's, quote, retired. If you believe that, I have a bridge in Brooklyn I can sell you. You never really retire, in my view, from the intelligence community. And you have Bruce Ohr engaged in this secretive communication scheme with a foreign spy to target the President of the United States? What was happening at the Justice Department and the FBI that this was allowed to occur? Sessions had wrongly recused himself. Rod Rosenstein was running the show. He must have known this was going on. Comey knew this was going on. Of course, he was lying to the president and telling him he wasn't being investigated when obviously he was, these documents show. Incredible material. And I have to say, I want to thank you who are supporting of Judicial Watch, who support Judicial Watch. I want to thank you for your support of our work that allows us to get this important material out there. Congress was unable to get this. The only reason we're seeing this is because we asked for them and went to federal court and pushed. It isn't like we filed a lawsuit and just wait for things to happen. We have to litigate the case and push the Justice Department and the FBI to give us the material. And the reason we're able to do that is because of the support you give us. And I want to give credit to our team, our investigative team, our legal team, our media team, all our support staff that help us do this work. As I said last week, this work is Herculean. in terms of fighting these government agencies about, in this case, the biggest corruption scandal in American history. Remember, all of this scheming against Trump occurred after he was elected. That's why I talk about the coup cabal. That's why I use the word sedition. This wasn't a campaign operation. Bad enough, the corruption involved there, the spying on the Trump campaign. So these documents are key, and there's more coming. We have other documents we'll be releasing next week that will shock you along these lines as well. And of course, the Justice Department and Attorney General Barr is considering declassifying other material, including the rest of the FISA warrant application that is also scandalous. So they didn't tell the FISA courts the details that we're describing here that I think would have made it more difficult for them to get an approval. So you've got potential crimes there. You have Bruce Ohr acting as a conduit for his wife. How is that not a conflict of interest? Frankly, in a potential criminal way. The FBI breaking all of its rules to spy on President Trump through this Fusion GPS crowd, outsourcing their intelligence gathering to the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee firm. I mean, we already have all these other documents showing that Steele and Bruce Ohr were meeting repeatedly, and we've had some of the notes that Ohr has made with his meetings with Christopher Steele. We know Christopher Steele was, as we say, working at the State Department. We've got details of that. And of course, the State Department was working with the Justice Department and Democrats on the Hill. We've got the documents. So I hope the Attorney General and his team in Connecticut, the U.S. Attorney Durham, is looking at this material. I'm sure they are. I don't know if there are going to be prosecutions, guys. I don't know. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic there may be a significant prosecution or two. Cautiously optimistic. But on the other hand, you know, Washington is the way Washington is. But there will not be prosecutions if we don't know about things like this. And the fact that we have this material out there makes it more likely people will be prosecuted. Because the Justice Department will never do the right thing if this corruption is kept secret. So the transparency is necessary. It may not be sufficient to get prosecutions, but it is necessary, in my view, to get the prosecutions that I know many of you so desire. Now, of course, we have to presume the prosecutions are based on law, and I don't want anyone railroaded just because we're upset about the way the Justice Department and FBI were managed. There were crimes, there were crimes. But if there weren't, I don't want anyone prosecuted. But I don't want it covered up, and then I don't want to be told after it all being covered up, trust us, we looked at everything and there's nothing to worry about. That's not the way we should operate. Let all the information come out so that we can also judge whether there was appropriate decision making to either prosecute or not prosecute. What a scandal this is, isn't it? What a scandal. Where's the media on this? Fox News is covering it. Where's the rest of the media?